they're trying to kick off a new game called Quantum Era. Quantum Era.
Look at that
game,
dude. See that
game
right there? One mark.
Quantum Era.
From the official account, it states, "We will have a couple of gameplay videos lined up to show off as soon as we can announce everything. We have started looking into optimizing the game for Xbox, but it is definitely going to take a bit of time, unfortunately. Quantum Era has been made to be played with the PS5's extremely fast SSD.
Enough from the
SSD. The Xbox SSD is quite a bit slower, so we are going to have to change things quite a bit to make up for that difference of speed."
This is my
game,
and this is my life. Okay, be cool.
Really now, Frit? It's been an entire year. Can we move on from Quantum? Wrong Quantum. But don't worry, the Quantum we're talking about is just as cancerous and toxic, but sadly, this one is a video game development studio. Well, I mean, they just barely qualify as a development studio. Since the reveal of Sony's next-gen console, the PlayStation 5 SSD has been all the talk for console fanboys, as they were promised this would change the way games are designed forever, and that it would be impossible to achieve the game Sony was building without that SSD. And now here we are, 3 years later, running said games built to solely utilize the SSD on potato rigs that don't even have one. I mean, the writing was on the wall with Ratchet & Clank, the most recent PC port. One that I've tested on 3 different GPUs, a 3080, a 2060, and a 1660 Super. All on 16 gigs of RAM, on an i7-9700K, on an HDD, and a slower NVMe drive. And what do you get? A completely playable experience that completely debunks the need for any SSD in general. And I cannot find you a game that demonstrates this better than Ratchet & Clank, because it is the game that started this whole narrative. The game was supposed to only work on next generation hardware, and yet here we are playing it on some ancient hardware. By the way, that 1660 Super performance that you're seeing there can be yours, as I'm selling off the card for $180.
Not a bad deal if I say so myself. Kill me, please. I want to die.
As you can see with your own 2 eyes, this is a very solid card for anyone who wants to get into PC gaming at the cheapest price point available. And you should have seen the amount of absolutely salty PlayStation fanboys who did not believe me when I said this was running on a 1660 on an HDD at 60 FPS. And so now the narrative's changed. Now the fanboys are claiming that Sony and Insomniac never said that this couldn't run on a hard drive. Which is hilarious because every single one of these console fanboys was claiming it couldn't even run on a Series S because the SSD is too slow. Well, newsflash, if this can run on a 7,200 RPM HDD for $50, I'm pretty sure it's going to run on a Series S that has an actual built-in NVMe. And all of this evidence couldn't have come at a better time, because now we have very little reason to believe a certain development team that has been console warring about the PlayStation 5's SSD to try and sell their asset flip of a game. The game I'm talking about is Quantum Era, one that you've never heard of and probably just found out about because of the console wars, and not because it actually looks like a game anybody wants to buy, let alone touch. Well, what exactly is Quantum Era and who's behind it? Well, that would be developer, and I use that word real lightly here, Team Kill Media, whose previous work was Kings of Lorne, a buggy and incomplete mess of a game on Steam that basically nobody knows about. And as you can imagine, that's because the game is trash. So seeing as how their game was a complete flop on Steam and couldn't gain a single bit of traction, they moved their operation over to the PS5 for their next title, which also had absolutely no traction. Until a few days ago, when people found out this project exists. Well, when I say exists, I mean it exists about as much as Abandoned. Remember that game for the PlayStation? Remember how that was supposed to be a next-gen horror game? That to this day, we're still wondering if it exists. Well, clearly Team Kill is very desperate to get any sort of attention on their game, so they took to Twitter to post this.
Development is pretty much done at this point. We are a hair away from going gold. We are going through a bunch of final approval type stuff before the game can be officially sellable. So everyone should be hearing from us very, very soon.
So does this mean release date for Xbox, gameplay, etc.?
We will have a couple gameplay videos lined up to show off as soon as we can announce everything. We have started looking into optimizing the game for Xbox, but it is definitely going to take a bit of time, unfortunately. QE has been made to be played with the ps5's extremely fast SSD. The Xbox SSD is quite a bit slower, and so we are going to have to change things quite a bit to make up for that difference in speed.
BULLSHIT. Bullshit artist. I say again, bullshit artist.
And now you know why the PlayStation fanboys are capping for this game. They're sold on narratives, not actual gameplay. I would know because I took a look at this game. By heading over to the game's website, you can get all the information you want, like what the cover art for the game looks like. And I legitimately cannot tell if they pulled JPEGs of firefighters off of Google.
This looks like a kid drew it.
This is legitimately the box art for the game. I legitimately think this shitty-ass cover art is presentable. I've seen better cover art from studios that only have one developer. This shit looks like it was put together overnight just to convince people the game exists. If this were an Xbox Game Pass title presenting itself with this type of cover art, you know the ponies would not be capping for it whatsoever. Porno DVDs have better box art and acting. Well, hold up, Frit, you're being very unfair right now. That's not a representation of the quality, okay? This game was built exclusively to utilize the PS5's SSD. It's not gonna be held back by the flop Series S or the PC cuck race. And the game was recently moved to Unreal Engine 5. Okay, well, let's take a look at what this magnificent, amazing, next-gen only title looks like.
Game looks like ass! It looks like ass!
Dude, these are probably the best graphics I've ever seen in my life.
Dude, it looks just like the cover.
So?
Well, I think it's not good.
Want to be a little more specific?
There's good and there's not good. This is not good.
That's the goddamn Michelin Man in their game! They put the goddamn Michelin Man in their game!
Now, obviously, this brother has never passed a ham hock he didn't like.
You better watch out! Those ray traced tires he's gonna be throwing at you are too intense for the Xbox Series S. And I mean, can we just, take time to really appreciate that low poly arm? I think the last time I saw a game that struggled to produce round objects was on the goddamn GameCube. And I'm led to believe this is supposed to be utilizing Unreal Engine 5. It can't be. UE5's lighting isn't this bad. Doom 3 looks more advanced. And aren't PlayStation fanboys all about the amazing animation PlayStation Studios pump out? When did their standards drop so low? I mean, look at these goddamn enemy animations. Look at the hit detection. Look at the goddamn gunplay. Look at the hitboxes. Look at the shadows or their lack of shadows. I could not imagine a scenario where the Xbox SSD would have trouble streaming the assets we're seeing here. I mean, to be fair, it looks like it can barely run on a PS5. Performance is atrocious. But you know, you can pointlessly switch to third person. I mean, that's cute, you know? They let you play in two different perspectives. But sadly, none of that seems to make the game look any prettier or play better. And do you notice all of the objects objects that would normally cast reflections are not casting reflections. And what's more, I've seen far more highly detailed gun models from the Xbox 360. Oh yeah, and you see this over here? Yeah, that's supposed to be fire. I can't! It looks so bad! It looks like ass! This wouldn't even pass as a last-gen game. You know, if this misses PC and Xbox, I think the world will actually be a better place. God damn, Frit, you're being kind of an asshole. I mean, this is just an indie dev. Take it easy. Yeah, you're right. Sometimes the kratom just makes me aggressive. Obviously, this is all subject to change if the game actually exists, of course. And for all we know, it could actually turn out to be a really good game, even if the developers can't seem to nail down basic physics. Yeah, you know, for those of us who've worked construction in the past, that's totally how a saw works. But again, while the gameplay looks like ass, the graphics look like ass, the cover art looks like ass, it could still turn out to be a good game. But that's not the point we're making here. Clearly what's going on is this development team has taken advantage of how retarded PlayStation fanboys are. Because anyone who actually plays video games will take one look at this and wonder why it's not on last-gen consoles. And they're also probably wondering where those instant level swaps that require solely the PS5 SSD are, because they don't show a single instance of it. I mean, just take a look at this gun scope. Look at this. They can't even make a round scope for your gun. And the craziest part is how they put far more effort into their merchandise on their store than they have on the actual game. Some of these shirts actually have better art than the box cover. It's not a good sign when the development team has more merchandise than games they've ever made. It amazes me because the only thing any PlayStation fanboy would have to do is just take one look at this game and see that it could clearly run on even an Xbox One. But unfortunately, that's not what they're doing. They're actually capping for this game. And now, since the Quantum Error developers have people's eyes on their game, they've doubled down on the console war as their marketing strategy for this product.
We want to set the record straight that answering a question honestly was in no way us bashing Xbox for anything. All we did was point out the current issue that we have come across and that we will have to spend more time to fix. A different platform may require different solutions. Nothing wrong with that. We will not release the Xbox version until it is ready and want Xbox fans to be able to enjoy the game experience and quality as much as PS5 fans. Also, the gameplay footage being thrown around is 2 years old, was running on UE4, we are now on UE5, and the game has changed and has vastly improved since that footage.
Yeah, I'm gonna say no on that one. The game clearly looks just as bad, if not worse, than it did 2 years ago. Was advertised for PS4 and Xbox. And while I don't think you were bashing Xbox either, it doesn't help when you retweet things like this. These motherfuckers have lost their goddamn minds. They think a game that's actually pretty and graphically demanding like Ratchet & Clank is the perfect example to prove their own point. Which is hilarious because Zuby Tech, Digital Foundry, IGN, all these assholes, they're wrong. I've tested the game on a 1650 Super on 16 gigs of RAM. Level swapping worked just fine. Of course, it's not as fast as an SSD, but it's perfectly playable and 10 times more impressive than what you're doing.
We did not say the game does not run or work on the Xbox. The game runs at 60 FPS at the same graphic quality on the Xbox as the PS5. We only pointed out that the SSD on the Xbox is slower and that we have to find a way to figure that out. We have a boss fight in QE that swaps levels instantaneously 4 to 5 times like Ratchet & Clank game without the extra speed of the SSD. In the PS5, this boss fight could stall or hitch while transitioning, which will hamper the experience.
Why do you say that like your game is anywhere near impressive as Ratchet & Clank? It's not! Ratchet & Clank is 20 times more impressive, and yet it can still run on an HDD. It can still run on a slower SSD. The experience wasn't so hampered it was unplayable. Stop lying to people. You solely lack the experience to make it work. That's what's going on. I mean, that better be one hell of a boss fight, like something nobody's ever seen before, if you want to convince consumers. But based on what I'm seeing, this is mainly just an asset flip. You know, the funniest part is when you take a scroll through their Twitter and you notice that they're retweeting nothing but PlayStation fanboys or misinformation about the PS5 SSD. And another interesting thing is most of what they're retweeting is from a bunch of bot accounts with the most bot-like responses. No, seriously, they're only retweeting people who agree with them. So while support for this game may not have existed before, it absolutely does now, because ponies have bought into it. All they have to do is look at the game and realize that if that was an Xbox title, they would be ripping it apart right now. But because these developers told the ponies what they want to hear, they're now going to support the type of game they would normally trash. Honestly, at this point, the production of the game, the way the developers are acting, their poor grammar when they tweet, their poor optimization, their poor graphics, it's like the game is a money laundering scheme, in which case I should watch my mouth because I don't want the mafia to come after me. The ponies, however, that's fine, they can come after me.
Looks like they are a better devs than 343. They are actually cooking the game right so it comes out ready. But of course the Xbox community gets their feelings hurt for any tiny fact like the Xbox is harder to work with.
Why on earth would an indie development team retweet this? Why would you intentionally engage in console wars, thinking that's actually going to help your product? If you want the industry to take you seriously, I wouldn't be retweeting this, cause player-made Forge maps in Halo Infinite look 10 times more impressive. What we're seeing here doesn't even look on par with the last 4 Halo games. And don't you find it odd that it's only the small indie devs with the ugliest looking games with the worst gameplay out there that are the only ones complaining about the Series S? Has anyone else noticed that but me?
I am quite shocked at all the hate you guys are getting. It must be hard to try and make something you love and find this kind of behavior. I was on the fence before, but now am 100% getting your game.
Console wars are the reason their game is getting any support. That's not good. That's bad.
Quantum Error, now one of my most anticipated games of the year. Thank you for taking advantage of ps5's beastly SSD and not degrading the experience down to bottom tier Xbox levels.
This is what? Your most anticipated game of the year? And you have the audacity to try and talk shit about Starfield? This is proof that the ponies will literally support anyone who caps for PlayStation. It don't matter if you were a sex offender, a con artist, a scammer, a convict. You say the right things about PlayStation and bad things about Xbox, and we will back you up. Ponies will reward you for insulting their intelligence.
It's crazy how much slack these devs are getting for doing something we have been telling the industry to do, which is no more cross-gen.
I see, so you're just going to defend the developers for falsely advertising that this was going to be on PS4 and Xbox. Okay, I mean, it's bad enough you took to YouTube to make a 20+ minute long video, capping for a game that you would have laughed at if it was on Xbox. But now you're outright defending them for false advertising. I'm telling you, PlayStation fanboys are scraping the bottom of the barrel to catch any W they can.
Sensitive ass Xbox! Shake my damn head! Always last place for a reason, let's go!
Amazing to watch J-Dub, the same man who claimed Xbox Game Pass would be full of asset flips, capping so hard right now for what is obviously an asset flip. If these same developers told ponies this game can't run on a PS5 because it doesn't have as many teraflops as the Xbox, they would easily smell the bullshit and say everything I'm saying right now. And they'd probably also include a dick pic with all of it. I mean, personally, if I were this studio, I wouldn't cap for ponies or the PlayStation community, because they will turn on you fast. But I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Here's the Quantum Error developers liking and retweeting someone suggesting that they should be purchased by Sony and become an exclusive developer for them. Honestly, the hardest exposure was when they said they don't think they could get it to work on the Xbox, and then they were asked this. Doesn't direct storage on the Xbox solve that issue?
We are working on it, and yeah, it might solve everything, but we gotta test everything and figure it all out.
So you're admitting you don't know if it's actually gonna work on the Xbox because you haven't actually tested the tools out for it. Are you kidding me? And ponies are actually gobbling up this information like it's the absolute truth, when the developers here, admittedly, haven't actually tried to properly optimize for the Xbox SSD. It's absolutely ridiculous that this development team had to rely on the console wars to get any traction for their game. But honestly, based on what I'm seeing here, I think they're doing everyone a favor by not publishing on Xbox and PC day one. Honestly, the ponies can keep that one. The devs want to convince you that the Xbox SSD is what's holding them back, when in reality, they're just a very, very, very small team that doesn't have the resources to put out more than one port at once. And they want to claim they're being transparent and honest with you, when in reality all they're doing is making excuses. The type that attract PlayStation fanboys on Twitter. This whole SSD narrative has been exposed heavily. Not a single PlayStation 5 next-gen title requires one. And yet developers like this, journalist sites like IGN, and even Digital Foundry are trying to convince you otherwise. Neither console box is doing what the other one can't. And anyone trying to sell you on that premise is just scamming you. Anyways, I think I've made my point clear. There's still a lot more SSD stuff I gotta cover. Final Fantasy XIV making its debut on Xbox is driving the ponies mad. It's fair to say I'm gonna be pretty busy. And if you want to keep me busy, then you should consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing if you so choose to. With that being said, I'll see you in the next one.
Fritango sucks ass.